Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Now, this episode is... Well, first I just want to say a little bit of a housekeeping for this episode. First, I want to say that there will be only one main series episode this week. This month. For a multitude of reasons, I haven't been able to make a second episode to go for this month. It's something that I've been putting off for a while, and then other things kept happening, and then other things kept happening, and other things kept happening, and now I'm just at the point where it's like, I either have to make one episode that'll come out sometime this month, sometime this week, or not this week, I guess this week when this episode comes out, but either sometime this week, or I make it sometime next week, or 2 weeks after. It'll be at some point in the middle of October. One of the things that I don't necessarily want to or need to say explicitly what it is, but I will say one thing. Consider giving me some money on Patreon. I'm gonna need it. I'm gonna need a little bit of it. I might say it at some point, I might not, I don't know, but I'm just saying I'm gonna need the money. I will say it's medical related, that's all I'll say. But I was having trouble making the episode before all that jazz happened, but I was more focused on that than whatever. But either way, no, only one EPU files this month. Sad, but it is going to be a somewhat good one. I think it'll be at least above average. And I will be doing something to tide you over. I will be making one compilation video, a compilation of the EPU files. I'll be compiling all the previous EPU files into one video. And it's going to be formatted in a little bit of a different way than previous compilations where it's just video. This one is kind of I'm doing it more with the theme of the EPU files. Not only will it be somewhat themed, but also it will have a new intro because I decided to redo the intro for a couple of reasons. You'll see the new intro. If you're a patron, you already seen the new intro. But if you have to wait till let's see, it'll be the 10th, I believe. Yeah, the 10th. But at the end, it will also include a teaser for the next episode. It won't be like a clip or anything. It'll be something that just teases the next episode, what the episode will be about. I will say, given some events over the course of the year, some people might view this video as controversial, but I have been planning this video for a while, long before any incidents have happened. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First, some news coming from Japan. If you've been paying attention to Japanese politics, you'll know that recently the Liberal Democrats had announced a new leader. And the new leader is a guy by the name of Shigeru Ishiba. And most people kind of expected this to just kind of be a generic, oh yeah, they elected a new leader, whatever, moving on. But Ishiba made a stunning announcement, revealing that he will immediately call for snap elections to be held on the 27th. A very interesting development. Most people kind of expect that this is just going to play out well for Ishiba because Liberal Democrats have a stranglehold over Japanese politics. And there were a couple of developments that happened before the election that made people a little curious about how things would go. For starters, here's one interesting one you might not know. There was I don't know if this was a formal political party. It was kind of a formal political party, but it was a group called Free Education for All, which was a group of people from the Democratic Party for the People Party of Japan. And they were, of course, a group that was free education. And now they've announced that they've officially merged with another political party you may be familiar with, Nippon Inshi no Kai. And they're going to go with basically a coalition. They currently have members of the Diet, but those members are now going to basically run as Nippon Inshin candidates, with the exception of one who wants to run for a smaller ultra-conservative party called Sansieto. And the main opposition party of Japan, the Constitutional Democratic Party of Japan, was seemingly interested in the idea of forming a massive, or at least a somewhat massive, or at least somewhat notable, anti-Liberal Democratic Party bloc. it seems that they were in formal talks with the Democratic Party for the People and Nippon Ichi no Kai to form a opposition bloc, which would give them around 148 seats, which isn't that much closer to Liberal Democrats' 259 currently, much less excluding their partner Komieto, but you may notice a lot of the other parties aren't really in that coalition. I guess technically the Social Democrats would be in that coalition as well because they are already in an informal coalition with the Constitutional Democratic Party, but no Communist Party and no Reiwa Shinsengumi, which is sad. But also, the Constitutional Democratic Party made the announcement that they are not even going to pursue that coalition at all, and they're going to try running solo because it's worked so well in the past. So the Liberal Democrats are probably going to win. Hope that Reiwa Shinsengumi and the Communist Party are able to do something, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Speaking of things that aren't going to happen, Raúl Grijalva has made a stunning announcement that this election is going to be his last. If you don't know, Raúl Grijalva is one of the most left-wing members of Congress, or at least he was at one point. But he's a pretty prominent progressive politician in Congress. If I remember correctly, he was the second Democrat to back Bernie last time. He backed Warren the previous cycle. He was first elected to Congress in 2002, and he was basically just a generally like progressive figure. He was kind of like a backbencher for a while. He kind of like showed up to be like kind of like the head of the Progressive Caucus for a little bit. Then he left the leadership of the Progressive Caucus to become the leader of a committee. Then earlier this year, he made an announcement that he was diagnosed with lung cancer and that he was undergoing treatment for it. And many people kind of speculated that that was kind of it. It was like he would either, not to be morbid, but he would either not be successful in his treatment, or even if he was like successful and he managed to get rid of the cancer, he was more than likely going to retire anyways. And sure enough, that is what happened. Raúl Grijalva was basically saying, yeah, 22 years is good enough for me, even though he made absolutely no indication that he was going to retire before his cancer diagnosis. So it's pretty obvious that the cancer diagnosis played a huge role in this. And while, yeah, it does kind of stink that Raúl Grijalva is not going to be in Congress anymore, he's had a long tenure. He's had a good run. He's done some good things, some bad things. There are a lot of people who are a little bit worried about what happens next in his district, but I'm not necessarily too worried. Raúl Grijalva has a daughter named Adelita Grijalva, who is a prominent politician in the area already, so there's a good chance that she's probably just going to run and she's probably going to win. If Raúl Grijalva was like either if she is if she's more radical than him, then maybe, but otherwise I don't think Raúl Grijalva really is I'll be real. The guy is pretty much there are many types of progressives in the world. He's one of the ones that's kind of very obvious that he's just kind of like a progressive Dem. Not to fault him, but I'm just saying he's not like a Raza United guy like he used to be. The dude backed Warren. That does indicate something. It still does stink, but what are you going to do? It was going to happen at one point or another. Same thing with Bernie. He's either going to die or he's going to retire. It's going to happen one day. Just got to rip the Band-Aid off and be done with it. Next is a news story that I actually have to correct people about. Okay, so if you guys don't know, there was currently a hurricane that went through Florida and North Carolina and whatever. Yeah, for anybody who's curious, it had no issues for me because I don't live in that area. But it went through that area, and there's a huge amount of conspiracies about it that a lot of people are kind of just bullshitting and being insane about. My mother, who's basically a far-right nutjob now, she just believes in all those things. Oh yeah, we're gonna go down there and we're gonna help the people. It's that's a stupid idea. You're trying to disrupt the actual rescue efforts being done down there. With literally everything being said, Trump says they're funneling money from the FEMA in order to give it to the immigrants. It's not true, but there is evidence that Donald Trump did that when he was in office. There are people who are trying to make the claim that somehow this is going to, the reason why they're not helping the North Carolinians, the reason why they're not helping these people is because Biden has a political bias against them. It's why would Biden have a political bias against Asheville? Asheville is one of the most liberal areas of fucking North Carolina. In North Carolina, there are 3 areas that are deep blue pockets. Asheville, Raleigh, and Charlotte. Asheville fucking voted for Bernie in the primary. But also, you know who did say that he would withhold hurricane funding to people and politicians that didn't agree with him? Donald Trump did. Remember? There was a huge hurricane in North Carolina not that long ago, and Roy Cooper, a very big thing that happened. Roy Cooper literally went on a news conference and said, hey, Donald Trump literally only gave me this much money to do this because I don't agree with him politically. With the same old spiel, with all the people also doing the same old spiel, like, oh, why are we giving all this money to the Ukraine when we should be giving the money to people here to help them in the hurricane? When it's like, guys, you are supporting and backing politicians who do not want to give those people money. Like a ton of Republican politicians just openly are like they're like saying, oh, we need to help the FEMA people. We need to help them like get all this stuff down here. And then it's like, oh, by the way, these people, all these Republicans literally voted against giving more money to FEMA to help people in natural disasters. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about one specific element of that. Because Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to open up her stupid whore mouth and decided to spew a lot of weird random nonsense, with a lot of liberals misinterpreting what she said. Here's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said on Twitter. Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done. With a Newsweek article using this title about this, Marjorie Taylor Greene appears to say that Democrats can control the weather. When it's like, that's not what she said. In case you guys are stupid and don't understand, they is Jews. No, I'm not reaching. That is a fact. The reason why I know this is because Marjorie Taylor Greene has said that before. During one of the wildfires, she said that Jewish space lasers caused the wildfires. She thinks Jews can control the weather. This isn't an uncommon conspiracy theory. There are a lot of people who legitimately believe that Jews can control the weather. The media is literally doing cover for her. They're covering over the fact that she's literally doing an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Why? Because the media is biased for Republicans. They love Republicans. They want Republicans. They love Republicans. The media is Republican. And that's why people like Marjorie Taylor Greene are going to always be in the news. That's why they're always going to give her fame and money. Because they want her clicks. They want her views. The media is for Republicans. The Republicans are the ones who are like, there's really not much else I can say because it's just like, the fact that this fucking bitch has any career is just ludicrous. But we'll just move on to some news stories that aren't necessarily quote-unquote political, but also kind of political, but also not. They're more media-oriented, but, you know, we'll just get into that. First, let's talk about this story. Artist sues after U.S. rejects copyright for AI-generated image. Artist Jason M. Allen asked a Colorado federal court on Thursday to reverse a U.S. Copyright Office decision that rejected copyright protection for an award-winning image he created with artificial intelligence. Allen said in a lawsuit that he should receive a copyright for his image, Theatre de Opera Spectacle, because it was an expression of his creativity. A spokesperson for the Copyright Office declined to comment, citing pending litigation. Allen said in a statement that the office's decision put me in a terrible position, with no recourse against others who are blatantly and repeatedly stealing my work. Allen appealed in 2022 for copyright registration covering that piece, an image evoking a futuristic royal court that won the Colorado State Fair's art competition that year. Allen told the office that he created the art with generative AI system Midjourney by testing hundreds of prompt iterations and altered it with Adobe Photoshop. The office rejected Allen's application after he refused to disclaim the parts of the image that Midjourney created. So this is immediately ruining it. There are a lot of things that a lot of people could say about this, and they have, and they will say. But let me give some of my 2 cents. First of all, they asked him point blank what parts of the images were AI generated, and he refused to tell them. That should just been disqualifying. He should have been disqualified. He shouldn't have won. He should have not had that piece be submitted. First of all, the fact that they said any piece, the fact that he just was, oh yeah, AI generated made this. It's like, oh, disqualified. Sorry. But no. You see, I made some edits. Okay, so then can you disclose to us what was made and what was edited? No, I'm not going to do that. Sorry. It's like, okay, then disqualified. You can't get this piece. Here's another element that a lot of people have been saying this aspect of the case. You know, AI generated art likes to borrow other pieces of art and then merge them together into creating its own thing, with a lot of AI generated art having a lot of times basically like plagiarized other people's work. And that doesn't seem to be that much different in this case, because, I mean, I'm not necessarily sure what specific parts of it is. Like, this is one of the things I don't get about, I guess I'll get into this last part, because this is the last part that I think, I haven't heard anybody else say this, but I'll say this because I'm going to give a really hot take. This is going to be an extremely hot take. Like, I mean, I could give a lot of hot takes, like, oh, I don't believe copyright is a legitimate thing, or whatever, but let me give this specific take, because this is actually based on previous copyright cases. So the guy states, so Alan, this guy Alan, is stating openly, point blank, that he owns the copyright for this work. Why? Why does he own the copyright? Jason Allen, why the fuck do you own the copyright of this work? You didn't make it. That's one thing I've seen. It's like a common meme now where it's like, that's AI generated, Luigi. You didn't make it. And it's like, yeah, you didn't make it. And as such, you don't own the copyright to that. The AI you used owns the copyright to the image. It made it. Midjourney owns the rights to that image, or the specific AI that you use to make that image. They own it. You don't. And since it's not human, it can't make the work, so the work is in public domain. I know this because we literally have a copyright case that literally divulged in that same instance. Between 2011 and 2018, a series of disputes took place about the copyright of selfies taken by a Celebes crested macaque using equipment belonging to British wildlife photographer David J. Slater. A guy named David J. Slater, he had like pictures, and then a monkey grabbed the camera and took a picture of itself. And then he was like, oh, that's cool, that's funny. So then he posted it online, you know, trying to claim that he owned it. But then everyone kept using it, and he kept saying, like, he kept trying to sue Wikipedia, he just tried to sue TechDirt, he tried to sue a ton of people, because like, no, you see, I own this work. And then everyone else pointed out the very objective fact, like, how do you own this work? You didn't take the picture, the monkey took the picture, and it owns the copyright to that picture. And due to the fact that it is a monkey and not a human being, it cannot legally own copyright. Ergo, it is public domain. Within December 2014, literally having it so that the Copyright Office literally said, if it is not made by a human, it is not copyrightable. So yeah, the end of the story. Jason, you don't own that piece. Jason Allen, you are a fraud and a hack. You do not own that piece. You cannot copyright it. You will never own the copyright to it. And if you do win the right to have it copyrighted, you are the reason why copyright is objectively false. I was gonna make a video about why copyright is bullshit, and I'm gonna keep this story. This story is proof. I gotta keep this story in mind. I was gonna bring up the monkey story, but yeah, I'm bringing it up. And that's the fact. If AI is as legitimate as you say it is, then it owns the copyright. You don't. It's just so stupid. Again, I was gonna make the video why copyright is stupid before I was gonna make the one about like whether piracy is good or bad. But I decided to do the other one first because that one was easier to write than the copyright one. Because I want to get like more like specific like aspects of copyright law right before I finish it. Speaking of things that need to be finished, the movie industry is finished, my boys. And this story is going to be divided into two parts. Not two parts in this section, but like you'll see what I mean. First, I'm going to actually detail the story first, and then I'm going to get into a part where I'm going to explain why this is bullshit. But in order to do so, I'm going to have to give some spoilers for certain shows. So I'll let you know when you can skip ahead to the main topic. So here's what has been going on. So recently, Disney and Disney in particular has been having a lot of issues with some of their handlings on some popular nerd franchises, Marvel and Star Wars being the two primary ones, with other media companies also having some similar issues, you know, ranging from people who have very legitimate criticisms of the products that they make, to people who do the whole like, oh, this movie is fucking woke as shit, and look, due to the fact that it's woke, it's bad, leading to massive fan backlash against many prominent films and other things. The Last Jedi, The Eternals, The Marvels, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Agatha All Along, The Acolyte, Star Wars Outlaws, the Marvel comics with those two characters, Snowflake and Safe Space, with many people, again, either for legitimate reasons or not legitimate reasons, review bombing. I did a topic where I talked about the Star Wars fandom, and yeah, a lot of it is very much fucking like cringe, gay shit. I don't know why I call it gay, but like, yeah, I guess it'll get offended if I call them gay, but like, yeah, like cringe, extremely like anti-woke shit, like that are like extremely, I mean, in every sense of the word, they're like just man children. But Disney and a couple of other media companies are starting to roll out a plan that is going to objectively make things worse. And it is that they are now going to start assembling super fan focus groups to gauge how the most vocal parts of the fandom are going to agree with a story case. So like now, whenever Marvel or Star Wars, Lucasfilm, are going to make a movie, now they're going to assemble a bunch of random fans, or like a bunch of like focus group of like super fans, and then are going to just ask them like storylines about like, oh, how would you feel if this thing happened in the storyline? How would you feel if this thing happened in the storyline? How would you feel if this thing happened in the storyline? And they're going to base their movies on that. Now, there are a couple of things that a lot of people have kind of said, like, I mean, to a degree, they've kind of already done this to an extent, where they kind of like don't diverge too far away from the source material to like make the films palatable to a large amount of audience. Like, that's why we're in a film empire that literally just has it so that, oh, we're just going to regurgitate sequels and reboots and remakes over and over and over again. But now we're at the point where it's going to become even more restrictive because, I'm just going to say it point blank, these superfans don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And if any of these superfans actually have a say in their franchise, then every franchise now from this point forward is going to be absolute trash. The first thing I want to say before I actually get into the stuff that I'm going to have to maybe have you skip, but like for this, like one of the biggest things that a lot of people point out is like Hayao Miyazaki, because there's one famous quote by Hayao Miyazaki, one of the most well-known Japanese film directors in history. Like, one of the most famous quotes that they say is like, how do you do like fan reaction versus like your reaction? Like, how do you gauge everything? And he's like, oh, I don't care what the fans say. Like he said, like, I don't really, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he doesn't care what the fans say. He just does what he wants to do, and it's a common sentiment with a lot of like creatives. Most people don't think that. Like, but yeah, most creatives don't care what the fans want. I mean, sometimes we need to learn that the hard way, but yeah, in a lot of cases, they don't care what the fans want. One of the most famous animation creators in the United States, Craig McCracken, he stated that when he was making a lot of his most famous shows, Powerpuff Girls, Wonder Over Yonder, all those other shows, he was just like, yeah, I just made what I wanted to make. And it's the same thing with me and this channel. I don't really care what a lot of the fans have to say. I just kind of make what I want to make. I mean, there are a lot of people in this channel that are going to be like, oh yeah, we love the Green Party, we love Jill Stein, and they're going to like next week's episode. But yeah, I'm just going to make what I make. I don't really care what the fans say or do or not. Much in the same way when I'm in a creative sense. I don't really care what fans would say about this. I think that this decision is the best decision. I mean, even when I think about, like, because I have thought about, like, possibly doing, like, I mean, it's very unlikely to happen, but I have in my mind thought about possibly doing, like, storylines of shows or movies or whatever, but I've always had this in my mind where it's like, I'm going to use the stories that have already been used as a template, but nothing more. Like, it's one thing I really hate about, like, a lot of certain franchises or certain things, like certain adaptations and stuff. It's like, it's just this story again. And when there's a divergence in the story, it's like, why did you even want this thing? Like, I don't want to give too much. Like, I mean, this isn't like based on anything. I know this thing has existed, but it's like this. It's like, why adapt the Judas Contract? Like, why make a movie about the Judas Contract when there's a comic book that tells you the story of the Judas Contract? If you want to see the Judas Contract again, why not just have the Judas Contract be re-released and then do that? It's different than the Teen Titans TV show because they do different things about the Judas Contract in that show rather than just simply adapting the Judas Contract beat for beat. And that's the same thing I would do. Like, if I was adapting the Judas Contract, I would do something different. I'd make it so that it wasn't Tara. Maybe someone else is the traitor. Have Tara be the red herring. Or do it in a different way. Do it in a way that makes it unique. Makes my interpretation of it different. But that's not what a lot of these guys want. They want to just be regurgitated the same stories over and over and over again. They don't want to see change. They don't want to see development. They just want to see the same things over and over and over again. Star Wars fans have proven this in a lot of ways. And I guess I'll just use this time to say this right now. The next parts you probably shouldn't watch if you have not seen things like the Ahsoka show, things like the Bad Batch, things like, let me think. What are some other things I might spoil for this? I guess the Star Wars, the Clone Wars. I guess Star Wars Rebels too. I guess there's going to be a lot of Star Wars things here. I thought there was going to be like some more other franchises, but let me think. No, I guess it'll just be those ones. But like, oh wait, Avatar: The Last Airbender 2. Yeah, that's another one. Because I need to discuss a lot of those things to explain why it doesn't make any sense, and why creators need to take these bold steps that the fans can't do. So if you are interested in hearing that and are not really interested in spoilers, like if you want to watch these things blind, then skip to the main topic. But if you're interested, then let's just hear this a little bit. Okay, so one of the reasons why this won't work is because fans' obsession with bringing characters back from the dead. Like, this is a thing that I've been seeing and hearing a lot very recently, that I'm just sick and tired of it at this point. And it's like literally a thing. And Bad Batch. If you have not seen The Bad Batch is a show where a couple of clones from the Star Wars Clone Wars show go rogue, and they decide to go on their own little adventures. It's a specialized group of clones. Wrecker, Tech, not Crosshair, Hunter, Omega, and Echo. They're all kind of like one note at the beginning, but over the course of the show, of course, they get a little bit more development. And in season 2, the character Tech gets a lot of character development. He gets a love interest. He starts like kind of like getting autistic coded a lot. He starts doing a lot of good things and a lot of interesting things. He was one of my favorite characters of the Bad Batch. And then in the season finale, during one heist, Tech is trapped, and he has to do the unthinkable, and he has to sever the connection between him and the rest of the group and plummet to his death. It was an extremely tragic moment, and it's an amazing moment. I literally watched that scene over and over multiple times, because it is a really good scene. It says a lot about Tech's character, it says a lot about the characters of the others, it says a lot of things in that moment. And fans were just so, like, when you go to the comment section, what's one of the things that they see? One of the things you see every single moment is like real Star Wars fans, we know if there's nobody, then there is still a chance that they're alive. And that's one thing that just absolutely infuriated me. Because they're literally just like, oh, there's nobody, so they're still alive. That's just that's just not at all a Star Wars thing at all. Like, they brought back one character I guess two. They brought two characters back from the dead, and then all of a sudden everybody has to be brought back from the dead at one point or another. And everybody was just so like, yes, Tech is going to come back. He's going to come back as like an evil clone, or he's going to come back as they're going to either clone Tech, or they're going to bring him back as like a robot. They were doing all this like mental gymnastics to try and prove Tech survives. Like, why can't the man just die? Why can't he just die? Why do you have to ruin his tragic moment like this? Why does he have to come back? Why can't you just let the character rest? Thankfully, they held to their guns. Tech remains dead for the remainder of the show. And I was just like, yes, yes, yes. Again, he was one of my favorite of the Bad Batch. Like, he was like my favorite of like the Bad Batch proper. But yeah, he is legitimately like his death that's the thing. It's why I think there are a lot of like in comics there are a lot of like it's the same thing with comics where it's like a character will die and then magically like in a few years they'll come back, so their deaths don't mean anything. In real life we don't get that opportunity. When we die, we die. We don't come back. We don't go to magical Kumbaya land. We die and then we go buried in the dirt. That's what happens. And yeah, just because it's just so infuriating that there were so many Star Wars fans that were just like, yes, bring Tech back. And I see this with a lot of fandoms. When a character dies, almost immediately people are trying to rush to say, no, the character's not dead. They're actually still alive out there somewhere. It's one thing if that is the intention of the storyline writers, but it's another thing when it's like, we are giving fans the power to just say, oh yeah, this character's death that was supposed to be permanent, we're just going to allow you to bring them back. And this logic makes no sense. Like, if there was nobody, they're not dead. It's like, Obi-Wan died, and there was nobody. In the most literal sense, yes. It's all because they brought back Darth Maul that one time. And it's like, yeah, it was cool the once, but when you keep bringing them back from the dead, it's like, then it's nothing. It means nothing. Maul was the exception, not the rule. And then, what's worse is due to that, they killed him a second time, and people were somehow convinced that Maul was going to come back. Star Wars theory literally was like, oh, Darth Maul's coming back in the Ahsoka show. Why? In what sense does that make? How does that make sense that Maul comes back? He was killed by Obi-Wan again. Why? Why would he come back? And if they were going to bring him back, why not for the Obi-Wan show instead of Ahsoka? And these are the same people who complain, like, oh, how come these stab wounds in Star Wars don't work? And then you're just going to deal like, yeah, but like in this case, him getting crushed by a giant thing. Because fans are pussies. Fans are fucking pussies. And I know this because in the Avatar fandom, I know because here's the thing. Another spoiler, and this is why this needs to be stopped by any means necessary. This is why this needs to be stopped. Because, again, creators will make the tough decisions that fans will never do. In Avatar The Last Airbender, villain for the first 2.5 seasons, Zuko, Prince of the Fire Nation. Season 1, he's the banished prince who was looking to find Aang so that he can bring him back to his father and restore his honor. At the end of season 1, him and his uncle Iroh are considered traitors to their nation, and they have to go on the run. Season 2, they are spending their time on the run, trying to get to Ba Sing Se, to try and live simple lives as refugees. Then, during the season finale, like Zuko and Iroh have kind of steadily were drifting away from Azula and the rest of the Fire Nation, and Iroh seemingly was trying to get Zuko to really think about the idea that maybe the Fire Nation and what he wanted isn't what he actually wants. And then he is given the opportunity to confront Azula head on, like, yes, this is what he wants. He's given the opportunity to confront Aang and get his honor back. And then comes this moment. Aang, Katara, and Azula, they're fighting each other. And then Zuko hits fire in the middle of them. You can't tell who he was shooting at. He stands in a position that makes it look like he's about to attack Azula. And everybody who's watching that moment, they're thinking in their minds, yes, Zuko, you're here, my man, my boy, you're here. Because we spent at least two halves, we've at least spent the latter half of season 1 and the first half of season 2 building up that Zuko he's a good person deep down. He's just on the opposing end of Aang during this war. He may be kind of fucked up on the outside, but inside he's got a heart. Iroh's been steadily trying to get him to see the light for almost half a season. There's one reactor. There are two people who reacted to Avatar: The Last Airbender that I remember seeing on reaction channels, and they were literally like, yes, they're screaming at the top of their lungs of Zuko about to attack Azula. And then at the last minute, he turns and attacks Aang, and it's like, nope, all that character development. You think, what? You're mad. You're infuriated. Why is Zuko doing this? And that is the best thing. Because that kind of shows it. If we were writers in that room, if people like that were writers in the room, and they had a say, Zuko would have turned good right then and there. He would have confronted them. He would have done this, and that. And that would have made his redemption arc fucking terrible. It would have been trash. Because it's the first half of season 3 that solidifies his redemption arc. Zuko's redemption arc is one of the most well-known and most well-respected redemption arcs in fiction. And it would have been trash if he was redeemed right then and there. But they give us one more season, one more half season, and you know what it shows? It shows Zuko getting exactly what he wants. He took Aang. He's given credit for killing the Avatar. His honor is restored. But it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better. He's still like depressed. He's still like, it's not good. But why? Well, it's because he realizes it's not what he wanted. He's gone through all these changes, and it might have been what he wanted when he was first banished, but he's grown as a person, and now he wants something different. The teachings of Iroh finally got through to him, and that, my friends, is exactly why this stuff can't happen. Because though the two creators of Avatar, they knew that that's what had to happen. Because I think, if I remember correctly, that is literally what they thought. They thought that they were going to have Zuko turn right then and there. But like, no, this isn't right. We have to wait. And yeah, that is why people who are fans can't be the ones who are making these creative decisions. Because they're going to take the bullshit way out every single time. I think I might make a Politics of Media episode purely about like the toxic reactionary fandoms, because it's just like there needs to be a lot to say. Speaking of a lot to say, let's move on to the main topic of this video. Very interesting time period for this video to come out. 1 year ago today, Hamas attacked Israel, killing 797 civilians and 251 civilians being taken captive. Ever since then, 42,183 Palestinians were killed, including 11,515 children. 20,112 were detained, quote unquote, and 1,900,000 of them were displaced. I use that wording because that's the wording that is used on Wikipedia. Like, Hamas took captive 251 Israelis. Israel detained 20,112 Palestinians. Again, notice the wording. The Israelis were taken captive. The Palestinians were detained. And this is very interesting because a lot of things have changed in this year of like this conflict. You see, prior to this conflict, I mean, I broadly would have considered myself like pro-Palestinian. I mean, I don't really think that I would have been considered pro-Israeli. No, at most, the closest I'd get is like, a generic pro-peace position. But I still generally saw myself as pro-Palestinian because I still understood that Palestinians were the ones who were suffering the most in this situation. But this conflict in particular has definitely like made a lot of things a lot more radical. Like to the point where I still refrain from saying this just because, but I do say that I definitely would consider myself closer to anti-Zionism than like I would have been prior to this conflict. And it's amazing. All I had to do was look into this conflict. Like, I didn't really another thing is because I didn't really understand much of the conflict. I'll be real. I didn't know much about it, so that's why I kind of like didn't talk about it as much. I did understand that there was a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and I did understand that Palestinians were kind of the ones getting the shit end of the stick, but I didn't really understand like the full in-depths of it. I don't know how long this seeped into my YouTube career, but I do remember very early on, I did equate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. But like, I don't know if it continued that or that, because like, you know, like sometimes you'll click the anti-Zionism page and then it's like, oh, Adolf Hitler, and then like George Galloway, like, you know, you'd go on like pages and be like, oh yeah, like you'd literally go on pages and be like, oh look, this party is anti-Zionist, and then you'd click to one section and be like, they're accusations of anti-Semitism. But now I understand the ideas of like, oh, there are some anti-Zionists who are anti-Semitic, but there are also some anti-Zionists who are not anti-Semitic. And there are also some Zionists who are heavily anti-Semitic, and there are some Zionists who are not anti-Semitic. Also coinciding with more radicalization in other aspects of politics. You know, just like generally like being like a lot more further to the left than I was starting this channel, which generally transitioned to also me being more left-wing or more pro-Palestinian on the Israel-Palestine issue. And all I had to do was very simply let Israel talk, and then I would I guess I'll be real. The fact that fucking like Benjamin Netanyahu and like the Likud party and like the Zionist parties were the ones who ended up taking control of Israel, that kind of solidified. Yeah, they're kind of cringe. Not gonna lie. I mean, if it were the Israeli Labor Party, then maybe. I don't know if it would have been that much because I don't really know like specifically what the Israeli Labor Party of today would do in regards to this conflict. I don't think they would have been doing that much better, but like they might have been doing better enough that I would have been like, well, I mean, there's still some aspects of like people who are pro. I guess another example is like very early on I considered myself a supporter of the Meretz party, and now I consider myself like there is no other option except for Hadash-Ta'al. But I mean, like again, literally seeing just how weirdly Like, I mean, it really just is so blatant. Like, all you have to do is just watch Israel speak, and it's like, oh, now I get it. Now I get why people call it an apartheid state. And as I've mentioned before, I've talked a little bit about this before because I've done an episode on the Israel-Palestine conflict before. I don't remember how long after October 7th it was. Just checked again. It was like a little under 1 month after October 7th. But that episode was a little bit different than this one. Like, this episode is a little bit different in the sense, like, that episode I was more focused on, like, just going over the history of the conflict and kind of, like, explaining some things to give context for a lot of people. You know, giving explanations of why I thought the way I did. But I kind of didn't really divulge, like, I guess, proper solutions to an extent. You know, the reasons why is because, again, I wanted to go over the conflict more in general. Well, like, I mean, the idea was that I would look into all this stuff, make that podcast, and then hopefully after that, I'd get a better understanding of the conflict, and maybe I could, like, be a little bit more informed on it. And then maybe after that, I could then use that information and then think about, like, okay, how would I think that the conflict should be fixed? And also because I wanted to avoid any drama over, you know, the particulars, because there are a lot of people, like, they get into a little bit of a heated arguments over, like, what particular solutions that they have to the Israel-Palestine conflict, even among people who are pro-Palestinian or whatever. Like, they still think, oh, here are the solutions that I have, and it's like, yeah, but like, they go, oh, well, actually, I agree with this one. Like, even the squad isn't unified on their stance on Israel-Palestine. I guess I'll just say it. Most of the squad, if not all of the squad, except for Rashida Tlaib, believes in a two-state solution. I don't know how many of them are, like, explicitly, but all of them generally agree on the same issue. End the genocide, and Likud and Benjamin Netanyahu are bad. That's basically the thing that they agree on. And they agree that the Palestinians have been getting the short end of the stick, and that it is in their best interest to try and prevent them from getting the short end of the stick, and making things better for the Palestinians. But they all come into very different conclusions on, like, the end goal. Like, what is the big end goal? And this episode is kind of going to be a bit more focused on the idea of a potential end goal. It's not really going to be the best. It's not going to be that much of a one, because I'll be real, I'll just say this is going to be a very hot take for a lot of people. Unfortunately, unless Israel starts doing some big changes, all of the solutions to the Israel-Palestine conflict are 100% hypothetical. The only solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that isn't hypothetical is the one where Israel wipes out Palestine. That's a sad truth. I don't want that to be the end goal. I absolutely hate for that to be the end goal. But unfortunately, we live in a world where that is perceived to be the end-all be-all goal, the only viable solution, or maintaining the situation that we have currently, neither of which are ideal. It seems like we're in a situation where it's like all we really got is situations where the Palestinians are less fucked than they were before. Ideally, I want the Palestinians to not be fucked, but we gotta be realistic in a sense and acknowledge that there's some instances, like basically most of the solutions, they're kind of fucked one way or another. But first, let's go over some short-term solutions, some short-term things that anybody can do that I think most people will do. You know, this one is still purely hypothetical, but like, ideally, you know, I think we can all agree on this. End the genocide of the Palestinians. End the apartheid regime. End the settlements. And for a ceasefire solution, support politicians that support Palestinians, like the Squad, or other politicians of the sort. Like, we can all agree on those. You know, like, making sure that Rashida Tlaib stays in Congress so that she can push for the Palestinian issues. I think we can all agree, you know, that's generally a good idea. But then that's when we get into this last part that's going to get into a little bit of a slight controversy. Support politicians that are not Israeli war hawks. Like, I mean, I know that most, if not all, the people in both parties are kind of like, you know, hawkish on Israel, but let's be real. Like, there's some, like, I mean, this is going to be a slight hot take, but there's some that are not as hawkish as others, and we got to acknowledge that. That's the truth. A truth that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge, but it's the truth. There are some politicians in the United States, even though they're still Israeli war hawks, they are less hawkish than other ones. Barack Obama was very well known for his opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu, and they basically hated each other when they were in the office. But he was still a hawk on Israel. And a similar thing can be said about this current election. One of the politicians is getting the open backing of a lot of prominent far-right Israeli politicians, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, the literal fascist in Israel, and one of them got a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, who gave him a hat that said total victory. The other one has been more open to the idea of a ceasefire solution, and has openly courted Muslim and Arabic voters to try and make sure that, there's at least some element of pro-Palestinian policies in her administration. Do I believe that she's going to be this magic savior of the Palestinians? No, absolutely not. But, ideally, there'd at least be a fourth of the way there, ideally, best case scenario. And maybe with some activism here and there in the United States, organizing protests, rallies, and all that other stuff, you could probably get, her to maybe agree 100% on these ideas. Maybe, push her to continue these ideas during her administration. Again, basically purely to prevent the person who's wants to support all Palestinians in America, maybe prevent that. Maybe prevent the person that literally just openly is like, yeah, but if I get into office, all the people who are pro-Palestinian are going to get arrested. Maybe prevent that guy from getting into office, hypothetically, If you're an Israeli in my audience who doesn't support the apartheid regime, support Hadash-Ta'al today. That's just for you guys. I don't think we can really do much to support Hadash-Ta'al in America. But there are some long-terms. There's one particular long-term. Most people, but what's the long-term goal? How are we going to fix the situation forever? And that's where we get into the biggest controversy, because a lot of discourse over what to do next. How many states? 1, 2, 3, or 4? There are some people who argue that there should be multiple different solutions. Again, the 1-state solution, the 2-state solution, the 3-state solution, the 4-state solution. I don't know if the 4-state solution is actually a thing, but, it's just hypothetical. Literally 1, 2, 3. There's many different versions of the plans. 3-state solution has 2 different variations. One that benefits Jordan, one that benefits Egypt. The idea would be Israel gets whatever the land is they have currently. The Gaza Strip would then be taken and swallowed up by Egypt. And then the West Bank would be officially Palestine. The Jordan solution is reversed. Jordan gets the West Bank, Gaza becomes Palestine, and Israel gets the rest. These are actual solutions that people have actually proposed. Nobody really took them seriously, so most people focus more primarily on a 1-state solution versus a 2-state solution. And the names are pretty self-explanatory. One has 1 state, one has 2 states. And that's where we get into a little bit of a controversy for a number of reasons. For starters, I just have to say this. Some versions of the 1-state solution involve, particularly the versions that Hamas and Likud have in their minds. Since we want actual solutions, let's ignore that one. The 1-state solution that most people actually kind of talk about that actually take seriously is the idea of a binational state, where, I don't know the specifics, I think it depends from person to person, where technically the states of Israel and Palestine would gone, and what would take its place would be a state where both Palestinians and Israelis can roam free. Meanwhile, the 2-state solution, as the name suggests, 2 states, Israel, Palestine. We'll stay focused on the 2 states for now, but it seems very simple. Grab a Sharpie, draw the borders, and then, ta-da! The problem is solved. Well, except a couple of things are not necessarily solved. First of all, where do you draw the borders? Do you draw them excluding the settlements or including the settlements? Because of your technical, there's a map of Israel and Palestine, and Palestine is literally just small sections of where they're supposed to be, but do you draw it so that that's Palestine? Or do you draw the entire territories of Gaza and the West Bank? And if so, do you draw them based purely on their current borders? Or do you draw them based on previous borders? And how do you enforce those previous borders to be made? And will you just inevitably lead to people having to move again? And it's just I'll be real, up until very recently, I believed in my mind that ideally a two-state solution would have been the best solution. Most people generally agree like the idea of a two-state solution sounds like a good idea. Because again, it sounds like a good idea. Israel's get their state, Palestinians get their state. The end, problem solved. But does it really solve the problem? I mean, and I gotta be real, a lot of it is on Israel. Because it's like, if I believe that Israel would agree to the idea of a two-state solution, then maybe I could believe that maybe it's possible. But it's not that possible. I mean, let's be real. Especially if you're going to draw the borders in a way that disfavors them. If you draw the borders in a pre-1948 way, then Israel's never going to agree to that. Sure, they won't agree with anything that doesn't involve bombing the Palestinians into oblivion, but I mean, that's just definitely a thing that they're not going to agree with. And that's where we get into the idea of a one-state solution. In the past, I've kind of poo-pooed the idea of a one-state solution. I've been generally like, yeah, it's a lot of it's like liberal kumbaya, like pie in the sky ideas. But let's be real, it's as pie in the sky as a two-state solution. I'll be real. I mean, again, the reason why I was in favor of a two-state solution is I believe that Israel was at least somewhat acting in good faith, but I don't think that anymore. That's, I think, one of the big reasons that I don't think Israel's acting in good faith. If I believe they're acting in good faith, then maybe I could hypothetically agree with it. But now, I basically just asked, and also another thing, it made it good, because here's the story of how I even started considering one-state solution as a viable alternative. And it's because I literally asked a simple question. I added everybody in my Discord server and said, hey, any of y'all one-state motherfuckers in here? Because I knew there was one person who was a one-state solution motherfucker in there. Sunflower Socialist, who decided to send me, what's the thing? He sent me it's like a video essay with words. It's like a video essay, but it's like written down, like one of those things. But basically, he just sent me a large cavalcade of reasons explaining why it made more sense for a one-state solution than a two-state solution. And in a shocking turn of events, he made some actually good points. Now, I think it's also because some of the one-state solution ideals are kind of tempered by people who are I'll be real, a bit not good faith in their intentions. Zuko's Marjorie, people like that who are oh, every single Israeli is complicit in what is happening in Palestine and they all deserve what's coming to them. Stuff like that. It's whoa, hold on there, buckaroo. Things oh, there are no good parties in the Knesset. It's but Hadash-Ta'al's right there. There's literally a side tangent, but I was looking through political tier list things, and then I clicked one. It was a Israeli party idea. It was a tier list of put Israeli parties in a tier list, and then the top tier on there was saying this party would be good if only it weren't Zionist. And the big problem was Hadash-Ta'al was on the list, and Hadash-Ta'al isn't a Zionist party. If I remember correctly, Ta'al, or maybe it's Ta'al or it's Balad, but one of the two is literally an openly anti-Zionist party. And he basically provided some, again, Sunflower Socialist basically provided some ideas, basically explained and let me say this. This is my interpretation of what he wrote. I'm sure maybe if he sees this, he might type whatever he said in the comments or whatever. But this is my interpretation of what he said that makes it make sense to me. One, he didn't formally make this point, but he did state at one point that the settlements would be considered Israeli territory in a two-state solution. And it's well, that's not what I want at all. The solution would be that the settlements would go bye-bye, but under a two-state solution, it's yeah, they would consider that, they wouldn't cede that territory to Palestine. They wouldn't cede any territory to Palestine, but especially not the most recent settlements. And the first formal point that he made was basically infrastructure. Most of Palestinian infrastructure is controlled by Israel, including the water supply. And since we live in a capitalist society, in a practical sense, even if Israel stops, officially stops annexing Palestine and stops formally controlling Palestine, they'd still have effective control of Palestine through their capital that they've put in, through the stuff that the infrastructure that they put into Palestine. And I don't think that they're going to give it up to the Palestinians, So they'd still kind of maintain some area of control over how Palestinians are. Kind of like how a lot of people perceive the Belt and Road Initiative, which many people see is like China, like kind of essentially trying to get political favor in other areas of the world. Like, it's like, look, what China's doing is like, we're just building the Belt and Road. Wow, that's what they're doing. But a lot of people see it as like an implicit thing, like in the same thing with like Israel in this sense. Like, oh yeah, sure, you guys can have the water supply, but if you want to make sure that it's like up to date and like it still works and all this other stuff, maybe you gotta do a little something for us. So instead of like the formal imperialism of yesteryear, it'd be like the more modern day imperialism. The next thing would of course be the right to return. And, I guess other general aspects of that. Like, the right for Palestinians to return to their own homes isn't really possible it's not possible. Like, that's one of the big things about Palestinians, like the idea of the right to return, to go back home. One of the big messages, the key, where the keys of the houses that were taken away, where they return the keys back to their homeland. How is that going to work if we literally just draw air? Like, Palestinians, you live here now. How is that going to work? It's not really going to fix the solution. It's not really going to... it's not really going to fix the problem, I don't think. And let's play a little bit of a hypothetical. Let's say we redraw the districts, we redraw the land, and now we've drawn it so that people who were born and raised in an area that is considered Israel, and has been considered Israel for a long time, now we draw it so that they have to move away to a different part of the peninsula. So now we've just done to them what Israel did to the Palestinians during the Nakba. Probably to a lesser degree, but it's still a thing, and it will lead to more problems down the line. If Palestinians took over the land and then kicked Israelis out, those Israelis are going to have the vengeance that they want. Like, they want the return to their land. It would truly be a never-ending cycle if we keep doing that. But then also we kind of do this. What happens to all of the Palestinians or Arab Israelis, I guess, that would be in Israel at the time? Would that not mean that we've just signed off on them being it's okay for you guys to be an apartheid regime. It's okay for the people in this area to be an apartheid regime because this is your land. You can do whatever you want. But hypothetically, you guys can just leave to go to Palestine. But really? And again, that also leads into another issue because a lot of people like to point out the whole obvious racial and ethnic background of Arabs and Israelis and all this other stuff, but that leads to a little bit of a problem because what about the Arab Israelis or the Palestinian Israelis, the people who are mixed race of both of these people? What happens to them? They're too Israeli to be considered Palestinian, they're too Palestinian to be considered Israeli. What do you do with them? Basically, it seems like either way, it would kind of look bad for them. Especially considering, again, there are radicals on both sides. We all know that. There's some people in Israel who literally will not rest until every single Palestinian is gone. And there are some people in Palestine who will not rest until every single Israeli is gone. How that's achieved is dependent on who you ask. But, no situation is going to be good. An example that I could think of is the Arab-Israeli parties, the Arab parties in Israel, Hadash-Ta'al, Balad, Ram. What happens to them? If we officially designate, okay, this is Israel. All these people are Israeli. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. These guys are Israeli. They're not Palestinian. And we've drawn them like that. But what if Israel doesn't think that? Israel considers itself a Jewish state, an Israeli state, whatever. That is what they consider themselves. Would they then go, oh, well, these guys, they really don't count. So we're going to have to, we're going to kick them off to, get drawn into this area with the other Palestinians. Or do they get to stay in Israel, but they get to remain the second-class citizens that we want them to? Ideally, we'd want to have it so that no matter what happens, they're able to be a happy and lucky in either side. But we know that when it comes to reality, there are probably gonna still be issues. Let's be real. Let's be real. I know this is again, I've talked a lot about how Israelis would treat Palestinians, but let's be real. Let's say we did the same thing, and there's a person who is, for all intents and purposes, considered an Israeli that ends up getting drawn into this Palestinian land. And then some people in that area, they find out, oh, this person's an Israeli, or they were Israeli, or even just to point something they're, Jewish. What happens if these people that are around them are very radical, the most radical members of the sects of all these parties? Well, it won't turn good for him either. And that leads to the last point. What would happen in this political situation? Like most people, like he points out that there's a chance that a lot of people would kind of just be generally, drifting to radical political elements. I mean, Israel has already been shifting to radically to, politically Likud, and the West Bank, I think it would be, no, it's Gaza. Gaza is the one with the Hamas, but, Hamas is also in the West Bank as well, but, just because they're a political party in the area, but, you know what I mean? There would, these three areas would still be kind of generally drawn into, vast different political elements. Likud would effectively take really full control of Israel. Hamas would be able to formally, really, fully consolidate power in Gaza, and Fatah would be able to take fully control of the West Bank. I mean, granted, that would be lesser of the three issues. I mean, Fatah is fine. I don't know about, their most recent political elements. I know that Arafat's cool. That's all I know about. That's all I know about them. And all I know is that, of the two, Hamas is considered the scary one. Fatah is considered the nice one. That's all I know. But, the political solutions wouldn't really get better. It wouldn't get better for anybody in this situation. In fact, there's a good chance that it would probably get worse for everybody in these political situations. And especially when it comes to Palestinians. They won't be able to fully consolidate power into one political nation. But if hypothetically, plurinational state, all these political parties will be able to come together, we'll be able to form, different coalitions, and, there'd probably be new political parties that would be rising on this. For example, people who are, there's, two Marxist-Leninist political parties in Palestine. They'd probably join up with the Joint List. I mean, I was going to say something, but I don't really want to say it, but, let's just say, the extremely, hardcore Islamist parties would probably form coalitions with each other. It would change a lot of things. The one thing that always kind of bothered me about a one-state solution to me, that up until recently, again, is kind of kind of just showing a lot of issues, but I was just but this doesn't really seem like it'll fix the problem. There's still going to be Israelis that are going to consider themselves this is our land. There are going to be some Palestinians that are going to consider it this is purely our land and there should be no Israelis, There are going to be radicals on both sides. And it's and then it hit me until it was explained. It's oh yeah, that'll happen in all the solutions. And another one, it's but Israel would never agree to a one-state solution. Oh yeah, they wouldn't agree to a two-state solution either. Basically either way you shake it, it's oh yeah, my solution is no more realistic than yours is, seemingly. In fact, due to the fact that it is kind of the most basic small thing, maybe it is more workable. The only slight downgrade would be the very basic fact that, really wouldn't fix a lot of things. There would be one major thing that won't be fixed. And that would be the very big noticeable factor of, under this solution, technically, Palestine would be gone. Technically it would be. And it's probably the one thing that kind of made me even still think about two-state as the viable alternative. Is in this situation, it wouldn't, Palestine would still be around, but it's yeah, but at what cost? And yeah, it's this. It's I trade away the ability of having the state of Palestine being a thing. You give me my people returning home and being able to not live in an apartheid regime and be considered second-class citizens and be able to go to school without being bombed and, without being killed by the IDF and all this other stuff. It's you know what? Maybe that's a good trade-off. But now I have to think about, the 15 different things I could say to, okay, but, what is the one state that it will be called? What will it be called? And what will I say? It's dude, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't care. That's fan fiction at this point, dude. Let's focus on, the actual solutions first. Ending the apartheid, ending the genocide. Let's focus on that first before we start thinking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 state solutions. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.